So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, always appreciate you guys being on. My name's Andrew. This is the High Performance Call, Monday through Friday at noon Eastern time, or if you're watching on the replay on YouTube, whichever way you go, always appreciate you guys. So there's a purpose behind these calls. There's growth that we all need to go through. And I am here to help facilitate that as much as possible. But all I can do is plant the seeds. And ultimately, you guys are the ones that have to nurture that, and you've got to feed it, and you have to allow it to grow inside of you and your life and everything else you're doing. So we go over skills. We talk about things you can do to better your business, and we go over mindset elements and what we can do to better ourselves. So I want to kick off today. I want to talk about mental and emotional breakthroughs or paradigm shifts that you guys have gone through this year, this last, 12, 16 months or so. For a lot of us have been some of the biggest shifts that so many of us have had to make based on what's going on around the world. And so I want to know from you guys, whether it's a personal breakthrough, a financial breakthrough, emotionally, what I'm looking for, like those moments where your eyes opened, hopefully in a positive way, or something just happened where some kind of truth finally broke through. And we're going to talk about some of those today, some big paradigm shifts. So does anybody have a couple that they could share? Somebody's at work, got their phone live. Does anybody have a breakthrough they can share? Yes,
honestly, no? Yes.
Forrest, go for it.
I really, really do. As we all know, 2020, just simply due to the pandemic, because of the type of work that I do, that was quite humbling, knowing the fact that what you have going can be lost at any time, and just being grateful for what you have versus what you've lost. And so a lot of that. And my wife and I pray. We are Christians. We are, we believe in the Lord, and we had to ask and say, please show us on our what we're supposed to do from this point here. I lost a lot of jobs. I'm sure everybody else did. And we're talking about a very lucrative business. And that's quite humbling when you have to focus on positive shift rather than negative thoughts. Because believe you me, there was a lot of negativity coming out, including between my wife and myself. And that very humbling moment when you finally look at each other and say, you know what, that's not what people that love each other do. We don't yell at each other. We take care of each other. So we just embraced the moment, and we said, okay. And I'll tell you, 2 weeks later, I started doing remote services. I started doing things, remotely rather than in front of people. Started doing parties that were on the outside rather than being inside of businesses. And it worked out. So
you find a way when you're able to turn things around from that negative to that positive.
Yes, sir.
But to be able to come through that breakthrough when you're in the midst of the storm, to say, you know what, we got to keep pushing through. Yes. Right. And that's an important thing. So guys, if you've got any others, feel free to drop them into the chat. I want to talk about, this is a training that I did a while ago, from a book. So I want to tell this story about, there's different ways to tell the story. And I think when I told it before, I told it a little bit different, but there was a monk and his apprentice, and they come into a village after traveling along a road for a long, long, long time. And they come upon a very small and humble abode and a poor family that was there. And they come up to the family, and the family says, we don't have much, but we welcome you into our home for the evening so that you have a place to stay and we can provide some food. And so they sat down with this family, and it was obvious from, the interior of the home and what the family was wearing that they just didn't have much. And as they sat down to a meal that the family had lovingly prepared for this monk and his apprentice, they said, the monk turns to them and says, how is it that you are able to sustain yourselves? It looks like you don't have much. There's not much here as far as worldly goods, and you're far from any near city. How do you sustain yourselves? And they turn to them, and the wife kind of looks at her husband to answer, and he says, well, You're right. We don't have much. All that we have is a cow. That cow provides milk. We sell that to a few of our neighbors, and we keep a little bit to ourselves. The neighbors provide us with a little bit of food, and we make milk and cream and cheese out of we use the milk and cream and cheese out of the cow, and that's how we survive. And so the monk kind of kept quiet, and they went to sleep that night. And as they got up early the next morning, the monk and the acolyte were leaving, and the acolyte says, what can we do to help them? They seem so poor and destitute. What can we do? And the monk turns to him and he says, go and kill the cow, push it off a cliff. And the young man says, I can't do that. I said, that's all they have. If I do that, they'll be left with nothing. They'll be completely destitute. They'll starve. How can I do that to them? He says, go push the cow off the cliff. And so as the acolyte had taken his vow of obedience, he went and he did, and he left. And for years he regretted that, and he was traumatized by it. He always thought about that family. And years later, he came back as a monk himself, and he was walking along the same road, and he found himself turning the corner, and where that small house had been was now a palatial estate filled with fields and businesses around it and everything else. And the monk walks up to the door and he knocks on it, and someone answers, and he says, I don't know if you remember me, but years ago I came through here. There was a family here, and all they had was a home and a cow. I don't know what happened to them. Do you know if they were all right? What happened? And the young man kind of looked, and he says, I think I do remember you. Come in. And he met with the father that was still there. And he says, what happened? How did this come about? And they said, well, soon after you guys left, we woke up to find that our cow had fallen off a cliff. And for a short while, we were scared because we were hungry. We didn't know what to do. But after a time, we were forced to do something we'd never done. We were forced to learn talents that we didn't know we had. And so we started to plant, and we started to trade, and we began businesses, and we were able to develop into what you see today. And so as traumatizing as that moment was for us, it was the best thing that could ever happen. So this comes from, there's a number of different ways to tell it, but the question is, ladies and gentlemen, what cow do you have that needs killing? What is your sacred cow? What is it that you have that you hold as a truth that you hold on to, whether it be for comfort or it is simply because you are accustomed to it? What is it that you're holding on to that's keeping you from reaching that next level? And so let's kind of dive into a little bit, a handful of these elements here. Danny's saying one breakthrough for me was having to shift from offline to online. Yep. The new world, right? So here we go, guys. What does the expression sacred cow mean? Sacred cow is an idiom, right? So when we talk about killing a sacred cow, obviously we're not trying to be offensive in any way to any religions. But what we're talking about here is a figurative sacred cow. It's a figure of speech for something considered immune from question or criticism. So this is something that, how many of you guys, what are some sacred cows that you have in your families that you grew up with? What are those things that they cannot be questioned, they cannot be criticized? Because this is how it has always been. This is how we do it. This is our family, right? An honest day's labor, things like that. Go out and do what you need to do. I remember my dad had been a locksmith and my mom had been a nurse, and then they had opened up this small care home. And one of the things my dad said was, you've got to learn to work and be willing to work hard, but you need to be a good manager. If you ever want to do anything, learn how to manage a business. And what I came to realize after years and years of learning how to manage a business is I was always managing someone else's business. I hadn't learned how to be a business owner. And that was one simple thing. It's getting the good job. It's getting the education. Guys, what are some of the cows some of these sacred cows, these idioms that you've grown up with? Okay, here's a couple of quotes to kind of think by. Enslavement by illusion is comfortable. It is the liberation by truth that people fear. A myth is a fixed way of looking at the world which cannot be destroyed because looked at through the myth, all evidence supports it. Guys, so many of us are enslaved by these truths that we've held for so long, right? 2020 should have shown us many of those things, right? Whether it be about cultural things, it's about government, it's about, online versus offline, like Danny was just talking about, all of these things. What is it that you've held on to? having conversations with people now that still hold on to this idea that, I'm going to build a regular business in this way without incorporating anything online, it blows me away. People that come and say, I don't really need that mindset stuff. I just need to know how to do it. I shake my head, because at some point they're going to come to the realization, something's going to click where they go, damn, I really need to change. Right? So think about what some of those are. Yeah, Poor Dad from the Rich Dad book. Absolutely. Okay, when confronted with a myth, people commonly experience a mental dilemma. How do we overcome that? Education is a slow process of learning our ignorance. People that come into this program or any other, at any moment in life, those that say, I don't need to fill in the blank, or I don't need to learn whatever, those are the ones that are going to struggle. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? The more you realize you still have to develop, the more you recognize maybe hopefully how far you've come, but how far yet you still have to traverse in order to be where you want to be, but understand that that's part of the journey. And educating yourself and learning about all of these things around you, that's one of the scariest things. Self-awareness is something that I talk about consistently, but self-awareness to that level is one of the scariest things that we have to deal with in our lives. It's one of the hardest things to overcome, because it is coming to the awareness that we aren't perfect. And most of us know that, but that we've grown up, and in one way or another, this foundational education that we received is flawed. Right? And that the only one that can take really that control and drive us to that next step is going to be ourselves. So no one wants to leave what has become familiar to them, regardless of how pleasant it is. Absolutely. And we've talked about this. So here's some of the reasons why it's so hard. Because when you're learning these things, when we're talking about changing a myth, we have to change, and we've talked about this before, but this is this balance between the physiological changes that have to take place in our brain, the emotional changes that take place in our heart and our spirit, and this thing that we've held on to. And oftentimes it's that nostalgia of, this is what my mom taught us, this is what my grandma and my grandpa said, and we have the pleasant memories associated with them. Grandma, walking into grandma's house and knowing that she's always got cookies for me. Sitting down and talking with grandpa, knowing he's going to take a few minutes to sit and chat with me. Having those moments sitting in the living room with mom or dad, whether it's watching TV or everyone's reading a book, or we're playing some game, or you're remembering Disney, and you're associating those memories with the financial and business and other memories, because if they could give me these warm, loving feelings at church, then damn it, they must have been right over here as well. Right? So understanding deep-seated, long-held, pre-existing faulty programming, absolutely. Being able to go through that paradigm shift isn't the easiest thing to do, because we've got to break down the myelin, right, inside our brains, around the neurons. We've got to be able to break those proteins down. We're creating new connections. We're changing how we're associating these past moments with our current situation and developing out where we're going to go. So let's keep rolling. All right. So overcoming the education is a slow process of learning our own ignorance. Accept the possibility that what we thought to be true may be completely false, slightly skewed, or altered. It's not that what you believe is wrong. It's that there may be additional truth out there. And that should hold true, if we're honest as adults, that should hold true for every single thing in our lives. To think that we already know all and this is the end all be all, as great and infinite as this world and universe and everything else is, right? Men occasionally stumble over the truth, but most of them pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had happened. Don't do that. Don't come upon a truth, whether it's listening from one of these calls or reading a book or you're hearing something or you're talking with someone and you have that small light bulb moment and you go, holy crap, now what? Oh, I got to bury my head back in the sand and forget about it. Keep yourself up and awake. If you've told yourself some of these things, it sounds too good to be true. Why haven't I heard this before? I've already tried that. I don't need the advice. I don't need that training, right? Here's a few others. Look, just follow your passion and be successful. You have to be a perfectionist, workaholic. That's the only way you're going to achieve your goals. I'll enjoy my life when I hit my goals. As long as I have a good degree, that's going to really jumpstart my success. Focus only on what you do best. You have to always look out for yourself. A penny saved is a penny earned. They always look out for yourself. We just got done talking about at the beginning of this call, my buddy Jason, mentors, friendships, having those teams around you guys. It's not just about you. The more you look at creating an impact versus just an income, the greater your income can become, right? Focusing on only what you do best. Too many of us do what we do best because that's just what we've been doing for longer. It doesn't even mean that that's what we're good at. It just means we're in that level of comfort right now, a level of capability because we've spent 10 years or 20 years doing it. And anything else is brand new. And so we're scared and we go, well, that's not what I do best. That's not me. Nonsense. You just haven't done it before. How would you know? Forrest's talking about being able to he's a DJ, getting in front of people and doing parties, man, feeling that vibe, feeling people doing it. What did he do? He adapted. Hey, I'm going to do some of these virtually. I'm teaching, that's huge, being able to shift like that. Most people are unwilling to think like that. A penny saved is a penny earned. As much as the government has put out in stimulus here, if you're here in the States over the last year and a half, that penny over the year is going to lose more than you're going to gain in interest if that's all you're trying to do. So here's your question, boys and girls. What sacred cows do you have to kill to advance in your life? What do you have going on right now in your life that you've got to kill? So, couple of quick things before tomorrow. We're going to keep going through this, but let me see. We have some chats. Moral support numbers, absolutely. ULP, yep. Actually, revealed truth is never absolute, for it's seen through the individual's eyes. There you go. So there's the perception bias. There's all of these other things, guys. Understanding it's always there's always three sides to the story. There's your side, there's their side, and then there's somewhere in the middle that's the truth, right? So Anthony sharing finally a sacred cow. What are some other sacred cows you guys got to get rid of? Procrastination is one. So here we go. The finite world. Here's one of the biggest ones that so many of you guys have to change. Replacing scarcity with prosperity and abundance. And that scarcity is there because my mom was scarce, because my older sister was scarce, because that's how my dad was, that's how my ex was, that's how I've lived my life. Replacing that scarcity with prosperity and abundance is something that a lot of us need to do. And just because you did it a year ago doesn't mean you have to stop doing it. Because you spent 30 or 40 or 50 years living a certain way and thinking a certain way. And some of you guys started watching things like The Secret and started reading books 10 or 15 years ago. And for some reason, you're going through all of these daily activities in your life, living a life of scarcity, going, why can't I change it? There's little things that you do, right? You sit down at the restaurant and you get the bill and you look at it and you go, 15% is probably a pretty good tip. How do I, what's that? And I pull out my calculator and I'm trying to figure things out so I can get that tip down to the penny. Stuff like that happens all the time. And then they go, I don't understand why I'm not making more. Because you're scared of spending every dollar you got, right? Here we go. Prosperity is nothing more than the accumulation of wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, is a huge myth. I will tell you that right now. When we talk about success, and I think later this week, I'm going to give the equation to help you achieve success, because there is a mathematical equation. I will break that down with you, and you guys will come up with what that equals out for you, and then what you need to do to get there. But I will tell you, at the end of that equation for success, it is not simply money. There's more than that. Amanda, my sacred cow would be the idea of not being book smart, or the need to be book smart. Right, Amanda? Who cares if you're book smart? What's it matter? Henry Ford was, always said that he was never the smartest person in the room. He wasn't worried about being the smartest person. He could hire them, right? You got Tesla talking about, at this point, they're looking to hire people right out of high school. They don't even need a college diploma. Who cares at this point whether or not you've got it? Because I can learn whatever I need. David's talking about excuses, always circumstantial distractions, stay on the committed. That's the key. We all can come up with excuses. We've all got them. And most of the time it's simply because we're scared of the pathway to prosperity and what that really is, right? So here's the truth for you. True prosperity is different for every single person on here. Rarely has much to do with how much money she has in the bank or how many cars he has in the garage. I could show you, a nice car. I could show you a great vacation that we've been on. We could talk about this. I could show a deposit slip, but guys, that's not prosperity or the only thing that is involved with prosperity. It is an element. Don't get me wrong. Having money in the bank is an element because I can pay for what I need to pay for if I'm doing what I need to do, but there's so much more than that. Andrew Bermuda, replacing the settled so-called victim mentality with the progressive positive. There you go. All right. Prosperity and happiness are closely related. They truly are. Okay. They're both dependent on two key elements. And it's this right here, your true why and the human life value. So let me talk about those real quick as we kind of break this up. So your human life value or your personal human life value, not the value you place on other people's human lives, but your own. Okay. So your true why. This is something that you guys need to do. I had a couple people this week like, I just don't resonate with that mindset stuff. Okay. Good luck on your business. Good luck on your life long term. Why are you doing anything if you don't care about the mindset? If you don't know why you're doing something, why the hell are you doing it? Right? Why change? If you don't know why you want to change, why change? Right? Many people know their true why, but refuse to acknowledge it because doing so may require uncomfortable decisions. The real pain and suffering from human existence comes from not making those decisions. As difficult as certain decisions are that we need to make, not making them and allowing ourselves to suffer because of that inability or unwillingness to make a decision is what will ultimately make yourself and others around you suffer. Be willing to make the difficult decisions because it's the only way you're going to get to what your true why is. And if you're unsure what it is, I'll tell you right now, it's not just time freedom. It's not just money freedom. It's not just I'm tired of work. There's so much more to it than that. And you guys have to be willing to drill it down and get into it. And if it's been, guys, this is something I try and sit down and do occasionally because it shifts, because our world shifts. But I've talked about before, there's a quote from James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, where he talks about having a bag full of whys. You've got to have your true why, and there's all of these other little things that, these great goals and accomplishments and other things that you want to achieve to cross off. Part of my purpose is not just to be a good father, not just to be a good man. I want to help create change in the lives of as many as possible. I want to be able to help in different ways, help families and friendships and help people overcome, addiction and adversity in a lot of different ways. And I understand that there are elements that will allow me to do that, but I've got to break through my own barriers in order to make that happen. And there's still plenty of them there. There's still action I need to take. What action do you need to take to get you towards your true why? And then this is where we look at personal life value. This is a combination of, this is the knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? Take away your material resources. This is your personal life value. This is your character, your integrity, your relationships, your creativity, what makes you you, your faith, your drive, your ambition, all of these things or a lack of them. That knowledge and the ability to shape your life. Understand there is personal life value. And if you're sitting here listening going, that's just not me. I'm not creative. I've struggled. I haven't overcome this, or I don't have any good relationships right now. Or, maybe your faith is lacking in different ways. Ladies and gentlemen, you can develop these. All of you have the seeds of greatness within you if you're willing to push. And some of you have a land that may be a little more barren than others. And that work then falls on you to fertilize that, to nurture it, to water it, and allow those skills and those attributes and those characteristics and that character and integrity to grow. Because you can. You all have intrinsic value here on this planet. You just need to get it. working in your favor. And you're the only one that can do that. So please push yourselves. All right. So couple of quick thoughts. You know you're in scarcity. If your friend at work or someone here, all of a sudden they get a promotion, they start making money, something happens, and then you get a little jealous. And you're wondering, why can't that be me? Why haven't I been able to, whatever? You see someone in an expensive car and you get resentful, or you judge them, or you think, oh, they probably did whatever. Oh, well, they haven't had to struggle like I have. Yeah, they might have that, but I mean, they haven't had the same issues that I did. Maybe you're dissatisfied with what you have. There's a difference in being not content with current level. There's a difference in being not content with what I have currently and being dissatisfied, right? Or you postpone important purchases that would add dramatic value to your life, even when you have the money to make them, because you can't stand to part with the cash. Well, I would, but well, I just can't do that. You know, I got to have that there. Okay. So we're going to do a quiz tomorrow, but here's a couple others. When your spouse or child asks you to buy something, more often than not, your immediate response is that you can't afford it. You immediately say, well, I can't because, right? You find yourself frequently wishing for a better life, yet you think it would be futile to strive for something better. There's never enough time or money to do the things you want to do. I don't have the skill. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. This isn't for me. I wish I could, but see, if circumstances were a little different, then I would. Quit telling yourself the lies that the world's been telling you. I've said that part over and over and over again, guys. You're going on a journey, and you're the only one that can go on that journey. You're the only one that can make it work. You're the only one that's going to see all of the fruits, because you're going to be the one working. The world is going to tell you the troubles. They're going to tell you they're going to give you excuses built in, right? A lot of your friends and family are going to give you an easy way out if you want to quit. They will support you in quitting because it means they didn't have to do it. And they'll say, see, I was just looking out for you. Aren't you glad you listened to me now? Right? Stop. Don't worry about other people and listen to them about the weaknesses and other issues. You don't need to tell yourself that. Everybody else is going to tell you. What you should do is spend some time understanding what I was talking about earlier, those seeds of greatness that you have inside of you. Quit living a life of scarcity. Start looking at prosperity. Look at what prosperity means to you so that you can chase that down. And each and every day find something small that you can do to kind of ratchet up that prosperity. That gratitude is a huge part of it. But understand the power that you've got within you so that, as always, you can rise from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are. So tomorrow I'm going to give you a little quiz and what you can do to look at, scarcity and everything else. Actually, here's what I'm going to do, because we're going to, is this okay? Everybody good on this training? If I continue this a little bit tomorrow, some of these elements, some of these myths and sacred cows and all of that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send out an email in just a little bit. If you can prep an email with everybody's address. I'm going to include a quiz for you to take. It's going to have a number of different questions. Just score yourself on that and look at where you are. And then tomorrow we're going to get into some of the more myths. So what I need you to do, you're going to take that quiz and then you're going to think about any of those sacred cows that you've got that you need to get rid of. Think about, whether it's financial, it's spiritual, it is physical, health related, relationships, work, whatever. A lot of this is here. Okay. So find a way to lift up and rock and roll. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to stop recording.